Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture, the show where we discuss science, technology, and culture in its myriad of forms. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve?
I'm good, thanks, Ben. Very excited to be talking about such a chilly topic.
Yeah, well, it's a bit cold outside, so why not, hey? All right, so we're going to talk about how refrigerators have changed the world, and I guess I went out sort of actively looking for some topics that we'll discuss shortly. But what sort of prompted it for me was we had some people over last week, and as you do, you stock the fridge up a bit, and so that you got some supplies to get you through the afternoon and the evening, and. Now, and the thing, it just made me think that, I had a couple of bottles in there that weren't, cooling up fast enough for us, and had to, sort of crank it up a bit. But then I thought, well, actually, that's actually quite an amazing thing that you can sort of, take that for granted. I just had that flash in my head in that moment that, well, it might just be warm, Yeah. And it's amazing that the way this appliance sort of has had such a positive impact on our daily lives.
Yeah, well, it's remarkable. The fridge, who would have thought it? It's revolutionised the way we can live, particularly in urban environments where you can store food without it going off for days on end. And I mean, that's unbelievable. The best example is milk. Take yourself a glass of milk, sit it on the kitchen bench. Within about 5 or 6 hours, you won't be able to drink it. But in a fridge, you might get a week or so. So that just goes to show you just how good they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just having a look at some of the history of, it's not really refrigeration. It's more about being able to keep food and drinks for longer periods of time before they spoil, which is really the main purpose of the fridge, domestically anyway. Obviously, there are other applications for keeping things cool, but that's the main idea behind it. But it's interesting, using salt, etc., and that sort of thing, the things that in hundreds of years ago that they had to resort to, that they'd probably find the fridge quite a welcome invention, I would have thought, because kind of keeps the food better too.
Absolutely, and I don't know if you know this, Ben, but I guess not the invention of the fridge, but the first successful commercial refrigeration units were actually produced in South Australia in Unley. By Coldstream.
Fantastic.
They produced them, from the 1920s. Remarkable. In fact, Australian refrigeration compressor technology was world leading right up until the 70s. Believe it or not, it's the technology was exported overseas and copied quite widely. So South Australia, and Adelaide, in fact, has a number of the first commercial fridges.
Fantastic.
Still on display. You can go and see them in museums. Wooden cabinets with a little bit of lining, and they used to use a pump to pass brine around the back, which was their way of heat exchanging back then. So, just I thought I'd pop that one in there.
Oh, absolutely. That's good to know, because I did see in there that the device itself didn't really promulgate throughout the world. It took about 20 years between the mid-20s to mid-40s. And, it's good to know that Adelaide was right in the middle of it.
That's right. It was actually the technology developed in Adelaide that was exported to the rest of the world over the 20 years. It went to the States, and from there it took off.
And I can imagine that would have led to a lot of cultural changes as well, especially that image in the 50s of the nuclear family and all that, and the fridge being a main appliance for the preparation of food at home, which would have been a much different sort of scenario prior to that time. I mean, I think that image really took hold during that era.
Well, it became the centerpiece of the kitchen, because you'd be storing stuff in there. I mean, imagine, some of us still do it if we're poorly organised, having to buy your food every day, take it home and prepare it. rather than just going to the fridge. And we all know how great it is just to be able to go to the fridge, pull out a frozen pizza and get cooking.
On the flip side, though, that might lead to a certain level of laziness too.
But it's that convenience and that food security at home, that you can have fresh produce and you can store it, safely and cleanly. It has been a remarkable invention.
Yeah, exactly. Just another thing too. Just in back through the history was that the idea that people were cotton on to the idea of using ice, but then they had problems. Obviously transporting it because it would melt.
That's right.
And I just find it fascinating though that it's one of those technologies that you can't imagine what it was like before it was there, and how difficult it would have been. But then before any sort of technology is ever invented, and it becomes part of a fixture of life that people got by somehow.
But it did. I mean, you had to preserve a lot of foods, whether you salted them or just preserved them like you would a jam. And then, either that or, you basically prepared your food pretty much as soon as you got hold of it. So,
or even way back when the British Navy had to go on long sea voyages.
That's right.
Keep that meat and fish salted.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's the only way to stop bacterial growth. And it's interesting. I mean, that's the secret of the fridge, is what you're doing is you're lowering the temperature and extracting temperature. Well, by extracting energy from the fridge. And that stops your little microbes from growing.
Absolutely. Now, just want to spend a bit of time talking about the future, because obviously there's always ways to improve these things. Now, I know you've got one as well, but I just wanted to start with one that I found a Russian designer had come across. It was basically, he's designed it in the shape of a fridge, but it's basically a big gel pack, for the lack of a better term, and you just sort of plug your stuff straight into the gel, and that's what keeps it refrigerated. Kind of, I don't know, for some reason I was thinking it was like solar power or something, in the sense that it was almost self-sustaining, you just chuck it in there. I don't know if there's a hygiene issue there though, but I don't know.
Well, it's a really interesting thing, in theory, which is, I think, is the only place this particular fridge design exists, is just designed like all fridges to remove energy from the product, and around the product. So at a nano level, it seems that using chemoluminescence, which is just light, it affects the microparticles, or nanoparticles, I should say, in that gel, and that just causes a transfer of heat. Just being moved somewhere else where it's exchanged. So all fridges work by a heat exchange, and I guess this is no different. Somehow the gel transfers heat by changing probably thermal density and shifting the heat to somewhere else.
Yep.
Amazing.
Oh yeah, but it's also just whoever, the way they come up with the idea, it's still doing a similar thing, but just in a completely different way.
Well, we're now at a time where I think we need to completely rethink just about every technology we have. I mean, that's what disruptive technologies do. And nanotechnologies, which this gel is based on, will do that, because there'll be new ways. You won't need motors anymore, or what we think of motors, when you can have motors that are the size of atoms or smaller.
Exactly.
And millions of them working at once instead of just one big one.
But maybe before we get to this, we'll have obviously the internet-enabled fridge, and maybe that's just maybe the pure use of that is maybe just as part of the connected home, so that you can go onto your smartphone or your watch or something and tell it to, I don't know, switch on at a certain temperature if you need it to be, or whatever it is that you need. But you were mentioning before we got on about if it's a hackable fridge and what would happen.
Well, there are, and thankfully I don't live in an environment like this, but I do believe some places on the planet people are very connected, and the Internet of Things is really happening already. And so, if you can hack into somebody's house and look at what their toaster's doing. You can control their toasters. You can control their lighting system if they have an automated lighting system. And, in some of these instances, and I find this rather amusing, hackers have been using CPUs in things like fridges and toasters to mine Bitcoin or do some other complex tasks for them, which I think is great, because I've never agreed with a CPU being in a toaster, but if it's there, why not put it to good use? Make some money.
Oh, well, I mean, it may be a question of it being inevitable at some point that it's going to be that pervasive, and you're literally going to have to be one of those people who, takes the log cabin point of view of life if you don't want to be connected up to it.
Well, I'll put this to you then, Ben. Do you really think that your fridge needs to be connected to you or to any other device?
No, of course not.
Well, no, it's true. But what about for energy efficiency? What about if your fridge could select what time it takes power and takes it at a cheaper rate for you? I guess these are.
But you don't need it to be connected to the internet to do that necessarily.
No, that's right. But you still need to have a device to do that.
You can have a panel on the front of the fridge that you can program. It absolutely doesn't need to be connected to the internet. But I can see where if it's connected to the internet via the cloud and you have the ability to remote in a sense, to that. There's positives to that, of course, because, the stories I've heard, going away from fridges, electric cars from Ford that can be, especially in America, I don't know if we've got them here yet or not, but that can be programmed via your smartphone. You can switch the aircon on while you're still in your house, so by the time you get to the car, you're ready to go. Or you can change the charging cycle of the car, etc. So you can see that there's certain conveniences with that, like anything that's connected to the cloud, but yeah, there's obviously the security issue that you have to keep in mind.
That's right. I mean, that will take the fridge to a whole new level.
And I don't know how you would apply two-step authentication to a fridge. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. So thanks again for that. Love talking about fridges, and we'll see what invention gets invented soon that gets us all connected up somehow with them.
That's right. Well, I better go and have a look and see if mine's still there. Or let me in anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links there. Make sure you subscribe to our audio, video, and blogs. So that way you can get the latest that we come up with. We've got so you can interact with us on social media, so Twitter, Google Plus, and Facebook. So I'd love to hear from you there. And if you think anyone's interested in the discussions that we have on SciTech Culture, then feel free to send them to our website. We'd greatly appreciate that. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.